right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining today for the State of Brightside. It's honestly been a couple years since I've done this. I just, you know, got left off the last year in the chaos of all the funding cuts. We lost sight of this, and so I'm happy to be back on doing this and ensuring that our volunteers, particularly our CASA volunteers, any of our stakeholders, um, and our and any of our donors or anybody that's interested in just seeing where we are. I'm hoping that I can lead with hope. It's a difficult time, as we all know, in the child welfare system, particularly in Chatham County. I'm not going to stay away from those hard truths, but I do want to speak to what's also going really well to remind us that this work is so incredibly important. So, thank you, everybody that's here. I'm going to go through this slide. Feel free to ask questions. I think everybody is muted, but if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you, or you can put questions in the chat, and Mandy's going to watch that and interrupt me. And then, of course, there'll be time for questions at the end. So let's get at it. So I wanted to kind of lead with our hope, a hope made concrete, right? Why we're here to begin with. And the first is that I wanted to talk about the work we're doing and the great things we're seeing. And as I was pulling data for this report, there was just a case note in one of the reports I ran for Brighter Futures program, and it just said this young person earned her high school diploma this year. And I just paused at that because that's something we take for granted in so many, right? If your child didn't get their high school diploma, I just had a son that just graduated, right? And we're all very proud of him, but it was not an option not to get that, right? We were staying on him. But unfortunately for the young people we serve, it's more common for them not than for them to get their high school diploma. And so it's an easy thing to go past, but to see that, I read that and I thought the amount of work that went in, and this was a young person that entered foster care in her teen years. So such disruption in her life. And she had a CASA volunteer that stood beside her and connected her to Brighter Futures. She has life coach to stay on track. She actually did visitation at the Bright House, was able to connect with her family. And so this was a young person that honestly touched all three of our programs, which means that all of us can celebrate together when those things happen. I don't think we do a good enough job of that, talking about those across all of our programs. And that's something that's very much going to be a focus in our next strategic plan. And we're working on that right now. And you'll hear about some of that as I go through this presentation. But this is people showing up, these systems working together, and a young person moving forward. And it's why everything else is so important. So we are stronger than we've ever been, despite at times feeling very exhausted and weak. We have three programs under that one mission. These numbers here are for fiscal year 2025, which ended September 30th. 364 children had a CASA, 9,731 volunteer case hours, the all-time high. I think not only is it all-time high, we're serving, you'll see on a future slides how we're serving not that many more children, but our CASAs are putting that information in Optima, and these cases are just getting harder because the system, and so it's requiring more advocacy than it ever has been before. We have 107 families were served at Bright House and 1,332 foster care visits, 50 youth in Brighter Futures, and 22 of those during that time of last year became employed. So let's talk about what's hard first, because I know that's the big thing that's heaviest on all of us, and to just be really honest about what we want to do about them or what we don't know to do about them. But I think first, is the state budget pressure. Um, Georgia pa passed in the Senate and the House. The budget that was passed included additional funding for DFACS, CASA, the advocacy centers that that do the forensic interviews, and many other direct service organizations. And when it got to the governor, he cut that to opt for a balanced budget. That was going to result in a $70,000 increase for our organization. Our CASA programs, government funding sources have dwindled. Uh, there was a time our CASA program was 100% government funded. There's still CASA programs across the state that are 100% government funded. I won't tell you all of the reasons why. I have lots of feelings and opinions, but we've done a really good job of diversifying. Unfortunately, we keep hitting roadblock after roadblock. We do have a national CASA grant that will extend for another year, but beyond that, our VOCA funding was cut several years ago. Everybody's funding was cut. They've been able to fill in that gap up until this year through some money, COVID-19 relief dollars. That is done. And I was on a call this week that said we can anticipate more cuts with VOCA. So we are seeing a lot of funding cuts. There also has been released by the federal government that there's going to be a lot of changes in how federal grants are. And in the new federal grants process, basically it says there's no guarantees that your funding can't be cut at any given moment. So what we experienced with the National CASA grant, which is federal funding, could continue to happen, and there's no guarantees. So that's just the reality of where we're at. Um, I think while it is really frustrating to not get that state funding, and to see our government dollars decrease because we know how important this work is, and these are our community's children, um, it is more frustrating to see them not invest in DFACs. Because while we can go to our community and ask for money, and we can do our best to find ways to diversify funding, DFACS doesn't have that privilege. And so there was no increase. So we saw that DFACS had a significant deficit last year, which resulted in all of these staff freezes, service cuts, lack of transportation. Since they've not increased their budget at all, I would anticipate for those to continue through next year. Um, we are talking about advocacy, which we'll talk more about as we go through this presentation. I did anticipate, we're going to have a new governor, and so that may change leadership at the top with DHS, or not. So the current so we all know that Rick Jackson is the Republican nominee, and does have a pretty strong relationship with our current DHS commissioner. She's supported his campaign. And so if he becomes governor, we may see the same leadership at DFACS. If we have a Democratic governor, I would anticipate that they would, like usual, parties tend to want to have their own in those high level positions. So that's something we're watching. But that all comes to point two of shifting referral patterns because of DFACS transportation. Referrals are changing demand at Bright House. And I'll go more into what we're looking to do in Bright House to address that. I talked a lot about public funding already, and then just the few hands at DFACS. And I think this is something that every single person here on this call, since we're CASA volunteers and staff primarily, know and feel. It's hard when there are 3 case managers for 300 children. I was speaking to someone at DFACS, and I want to share who it was, but she was just tears in her eyes, said to me, I can't sleep at night because I'm so afraid what's going to happen on my watch because we don't have enough people to ensure the children in this community are safe. And that's heavy. And so I try to remind myself that as difficult as it can be to maintain that hope and to feel that there is some positive movement somewhere, I try to remember that there's people at out there doing the hardest stuff that are carrying the heaviest load. And quite frankly, the ones that are left are doing it because they're passionate, because why else would they be doing it? So, may not always agree, may not always understand, but I think they're there knowing that if they're not, who will be there for those kids? So I want to go program by program and kind of talk to you about what this is. I'm sorry. Oh, Mandy, you were supposed to tell me to make these screens bigger.
Oops, sorry. I forgot.
And I just realized how small this print was. So you're going to want to see this bigger. All right. Is it bigger?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. I can't really see it on that. Okay. So the CASA program, as said, we've been serving 364 children. Um, and we talked about that. The challenges we're seeing is recruiting and retaining volunteers. Despite the reasons for volunteers leaving, what we hear the most outside of the normal moving. That's, we live in a more transient community, a lot of military, things like that. So we do see people moving often. Um, and then um, I think the most common cited reason was defects, and it is difficult to feel that they're making a difference when they can't get anybody to do their jobs. Mandy, would you agree that's primarily what you hear at Exit?
Yes, definitely.
And I'm sure our current CASA volunteers feel that heavy. And then we've also, the other problem that we're seeing is we have some of our newer judges prefer attorney guardian ad litems over CASAs. I shouldn't say prefer. They'd really like for me to and Mandy to put a CASA volunteer on cases with attorney guardian ad litems, which we had been doing to try and maintain our 100%. But as volunteers, um, recruitment has become difficult. We've stopped putting CASA volunteers on cases that have an attorney guardian ad litem, which has all but taken us out of one courtroom. Pretty much will be because she appoints a guardian ad litem to every single case. And the reason for that is one, we feel that it undermines the role of a CASA. Two, we often see guardian ad litems present CASA volunteers' work as their own. And while we realize, we're like, no ego. That's our goal, is no ego in the game. Like we like whatever we need to make sure these kids get permanency, right, and get the services they need. However, we also recognize CASA volunteers are volunteers, and their work should be recognized and valued in the same way that our attorneys' work is valued. And so that is a discussion we're having. So the good news we have to share, as we had written a grant um, and received funding. It's a 1-year grant that allows us to hire an attorney for the CASA program. And so we will have an attorney on staff who will basically be appointed to all of our cases, will not be in court with you, all like cannot go to 300 court hearings, right? But they will be able to be pulled in when we need to file motions, when we need to do TPR packets. It'll give us the ability to operate in the court with the same as many of ours. And it, to me, will make to prove that the CASA model works best because we're doing the hard, most intense work. And if we can have an attorney that can just help meet those demands that these judges are asking of, I think we can remove that barrier and be back to our core model. I will say I've gotten pushback from some like Georgia CASA and some others that believe very much in the volunteer GAL model. And while in theory I fully agree with them, that this shouldn't be necessary in practice. That's not our courts. We have more specialty courts than any other court in Georgia. We have, and we just need to meet this need. And quite frankly, it can be difficult for us sometimes to understand what's happening in the courtroom when we don't have an attorney. Now, this is a 1 year pilot, and my goal is for us to, at the end of the 1 year, prove the amount of money that we've saved the county because they are not using attorney guardian ad litem's panel attorneys that are billing for hours. And so then we could get a contract or allow the court to use us basically as a panel attorney, which Judge Cole and I were already talking about and looking to move to that direction. I think this will just allow us to pilot it, see what works first with that money, and then allow us to move forward. So we're so excited about that. I think that's going to be a game changer. I hope our CASA volunteers are going to be excited about it. That, your coordinators will be able to bring in this attorney when we have questions of like, what's the best legal strategy here for us to accomplish this goal. I don't want to use it as a way to beat up defects. That's the only thing, right? We want our goal, and why I don't want to just have the court appoint us panel attorneys is we want an attorney with our values, with our approach, with a trauma informed approach to this work, with a belief in the CASA model, and someone that has oversight, not by some uh, entity, who knows? I've tried to figure out how we have any oversight of panel attorneys other than bar complaints, which seems to be the only thing. And that's not efficient. So having someone that works within an organization as part of a team, we're so excited about that. And then we are continuing to want to grow that volunteer base and ensure and just, do this work. The CASA program has been in this community since 1991. We've evolved, we've grown, we've changed. The court has evolved and grown and changed. The need has as well. And so we have to respond to those. This kind of just shows you the reach from 2019. I could have gone back further, and you could have even seen how many more fewer cases we served. But as you can see, the case hours is what stood out the most. And I should have done one about the number of volunteers we have as well. But in 19, the same amount, we are serving the same amount of kids. We are right in this very moment. So that's let's see, 8 months. FY26 is 8 months. And they were doing only 2,500 case logged hours. It has become harder work, but I want our volunteers to know we're committed to providing you all with the resources to make this work easier. Unfortunately, we can't change the system, but we can change our approaches to the system, and that's what we're doing. Now, Bright House. So, just some random information, not random, important information for you all to read just about what Bright House is. I'm hoping everybody's familiar with Bright House. The challenges we see with the Bright House right now is that referrals, the transportation, it is greatly reduced the number of visits. We've had to move to of a lot of virtual visits or canceled visits because of transportation. The state is basically refusing to provide transportation. We piloted a transportation model in the beginning of this year. It was ramped up and successful. Funding was limited, so we could not continue to do it. We are in discussions with DFACS on how we could, what are some approaches we could take to continue to do that transportation. This is not a priority for DFACS. Visitation is not a priority. It's clear. And I think it's going to take some lawsuits, like I think some civil rights lawsuits that parents are not seeing their children. You remove children from their home and then you deny access to their children. That is un-American, in my opinion, taking away that rights of parents. And so I think it is going to take some lawsuits to really bring attention to this, floating it to a few people I know to see if anybody will take it up. Because unfortunately, the rest of the state, I don't think understands this because their kids aren't placed all over the state like it is. So I think the counties that are most impacted are those of us that are here on the coast that have a lot of kids. So us and like Glynn County, um, these are the ones that feel this impact the heaviest. And they're prioritizing uh, transportation to court because they don't want to get beat up by the judge, right? And so they're going to do that. So this isn't a priority. So we're looking to do that. Um, we are put in the next, hopefully let me try that again. Senator Ossoff put us in for his congressional directed spending, his appropriations that he gets for for the state of Georgia. He's included us for $163,000 that we will be able to use to buy vehicles, do some new things at the Bright House as far as just getting it up to the standards we'd like for it to get up, and plus a vehicle that can be used by Brighter Futures and CASA. Because our current Cosmobile is not going to last us that much longer. Nobody wants to drive it, so we probably need to upgrade it. It's an older vehicle and it's held up very nice, but it's getting close. And so we're very excited about that. Of course, that will happen in this next federal fiscal year, which is 10-1, and will require Congress to pass the budget. We have to still get through approvals at the subcommittee level. I don't anticipate it's rare for them to nitpick down to right? Our 163,000 is pretty measly in there. I don't anticipate that being the problem. I think the bigger problem will just be Congress passing a budget. It's just been the problem for many years now. And so we don't know when that money will show up. The soonest we'll know will be 10-1. I'm thinking probably closer to the end of the year. We did move to a new location on Wolf Street. We are now consolidating to one larger location that is we just moved into it, working on it now. We'll do an open house in August. Um, it allows us to be in all one shared location, can do more visitation there. I think that'll help us for safety reasons. It'll help us for consistency, for team morale, all of those kinds of things. Um, there's some really great benefits of the location. It's just around the corner on Wolf Street, so it's not very far. And we're renting from East Savannah United, which is a nonprofit agency that is a purpose-built community that will be doing a lot of incredible work in East Savannah. And so we're excited to be working with another nonprofit and a good landlord that cares about this work and understands the work that we do. And Senator Mallow runs East Savannah United, so it's also great to have a great relationship with one of our legislators. And then we're working on expanding family law to have more of a have more of a fee-based service to help us sustain this program. Bright House is the hardest program to fund. We only have we have two government grants, just the county gives us some money. Well, I guess three. County, city is a little bit of money, and then promoting safe and stable family, which funds each of our three programs. And so it is it's a really tough one to fund, and it's becoming tougher. The Promoting Safe and Stable Families, which is our largest funder, only funds based on the number of services we provide. They are operated by DFACS. They should know that we can't provide services if they can't do theirs, but that doesn't mean they'll pay us. So we are struggling there substantially. Unfortunately, we had to reduce staff, um, and we're pivoting to see what we can do to fill these gaps. And so, um, but I'm hopeful. I think we've got some really good ideas, and that will come there and that will come around. And this kind of shows you the growth of the Bright House. And uh, I think they're doing incredible work. We have a lot of in our strategic plan. We have a lot of great ideas, like a parent advocate, so that our parents have someone like what a CASA volunteer is to help them navigate the system and care about them. I think would be such an asset, but finding funding for this work can be very difficult. All right, and our last program is Brighter Futures. Um, it is our newest program. Um, it is our most intensive program. One thing we didn't anticipate was the youth that we are referred to this program, and maybe we should have. And some of you CASA volunteers are probably be like, "Duh, why didn't you think that?" I could have told you this because I have some. You might be serving older youth. We are only getting youth that are in severe crisis, right? They're ones that are homeless. They are the ones that were referred to our program were in such significant crisis. It's very difficult to stabilize them without those resources existing. And also getting the youth to a place where they're ready to also do the work, right? It's transitioning them from thinking, I have a case manager and the state's responsibility to take care of me to I have to take care of myself, but this program is here to support me. They often want to see us as just an extension of DFACS, which we have to kind of break that line of thinking that our responsibility is not to care for you. Our responsibility is to be a resource and a support for you. So it's been some difficult conversations. We've had to release some youth from the program who just, they were becoming they would have constant emergencies because they weren't doing the things they needed to do and would just come to us to bail them out. And that just became a helping that was hurting. And so we've had to have really tough conversations about what we can do and what we can't do and what we need them to do to be able to get them to where they need to go. But we've had also some amazing success stories. We're not accepting any referrals for that program. We in the program we have two separate entities basically. We have our TK, who's our case manager that's working with the youth that are coming straight, like the ones that are referred that are not in school and are typically the higher level of crisis. And then we are accepting referrals for youth that are in school. If they're 16 or older and they are in any school, high school, GED programs, maybe we might accept them if they're doing, because we find that the GED programs, they're often not participating and we can only really accept youth that are really already super engaged in school, but we're open to that conversation. So if they're in high school, any post-secondary education, and we're working to find life coaches across the state so that it doesn't matter where they're placed, we'll be able to provide that support to them. And so we can accept them because for every young person that we have that is enrolled in school, we then can use our Fostering Success Act dollars that can provide them with life coaching, money, all the kinds of things. And we really want to get more 16 to 18-year-olds in that so that we can get them when they're younger and help them make that path. It's hard once they're 18, they already signed out of care, or they're just angry at the world and having to be adults because we know the system's like, you're 18, figure it out yourself. And they don't know how to do that. And so if we can get them when they're younger so we can help them, we found that, they're supposed to have all these transitional plans, but I think we all know in practice that's not happening. Those transitional call meetings aren't valuable mostly. And these young people aren't creating really good plans, right? We have to build, it's hard to help youth transition if you don't have well-established relationships. And I think with a life coach coming on at 16 to establish that relationship, and then we'll be having mentors starting hopefully in the next 6 months, and then giving mentors to them as well. The message I'm bringing to our community now is what our kids come into foster care, right? Because they don't have trusted adults, right? They've been let down by the adults in their life. They need people. They don't need things. They need housing. There's things they need, but more than any of that, they need people. And I think the movement I've seen that government funding and even foundation funding, local foundation funding has moved towards, and even individual giving has moved towards, I want to meet a need. Can I pay for them to do classes? Everybody wants to do that, but we can't even get a kid into the anything until we have a trusted adult, a case manager that stabilizes them before we can start giving those things to them. When we just give without that case management piece, we're just causing harm. And so we have to really start to train our funders and our community that what these kinds of programs need is funding for people. Because even mentors who volunteer their time can't train themselves and show up at the office and do all the work without a person at the office to get them ready. And so really changing that message to those that we need unrestricted funding that allows us to hire staff. Serving 50 youth right now, to be quite honest, we have three staff members. So one, a program director, a case manager, and then uh, 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 I forget Maggie's title. I gave her a really long title, but it's over the FSA program, and she oversees the two life coaches. I need like five case managers. If we had five case managers for 10 to that had a case man that had 10 to 15 kids, we could really make some impactful. But I can't find people to just say, hey, here's some money, hire a case manager. And we need good case managers. We need case managers that understand this population, that are committed to these young people and have really, really thick skin. And I know anybody that served any of our young people know that to be true. However, this Fostering Success Act funding is fabulous for us to serve any kids in that are in school. We get to use 20% of that funding for overhead. So that's how we pay for like Maggie's position. So the more money we bring in there, the more positions I can add for case management. Um, and then we hire, and we can use that also to hire that for 20%. And then the 80% we have to use for direct service, paying for educational needs, stuff for them. And then also it can pay for our life coaches. So it is really, really good money. And we'd like to increase that funding so we can do more. But we're having a really hard time getting this message out to the community. So that's our struggle right now. And this just shows you again some of our data. I did on this page, this is actually 2026. Part of Maggie's role has been establishing our data management system. And so we have some really good tracking now that we're doing around outcomes and the touch points and life coaching sessions. So you can see this is just this year to date that we've had 56 positive outcomes. So these are someone got into education, got into employment, got stable housing, got into there's some independent living, mental health. So they went like we had one young person that went themselves to Gateway and got what they needed. Like that's an outcome. These young people getting that on their own. Um, financial and health. So, they went to the doctor on their own. Any level of independence, that's an outcome. We found that every one of these young people are so different that we can't track them by the same measurements. We have to meet them where they are. And we can't say, you graduate from this program when you're in stable housing and you got a job. No, we have young people in stable housing and a job, but their mental health is not stabilized. The job is not going to secure them, and they don't have health care, all those things. So there's so many pieces, and we have to celebrate where we are. But so much good stuff. Like I've tried to encourage our Brighter Futures program because it can be really heavy at time to make sure they celebrate like these really great outcomes that but for us would not have happened. So we're going to build on what's working. We're going to continue to diversify revenue. We've increased the infrastructure of the organization, which was long overdue. We were operating, I think this organization was $300,000 when I took over. And we're at 1.7 million now. And we were operating like we're still like 500,000. We didn't have much administrative support. We didn't have much infrastructure in our development systems. And that adding Anna's position and adding Alexis's position have been, plus adding some program support position has really taken off, well, a lot off my plate so that I'm not doing administrative work anymore and able to go work more on strategic and fundraising, but also for our program directors to have that level of support, and just having someone keep things organized within the office. And so that has really increased capacity. Unfortunately, at the same time, the capacity of defects was decreasing, which then in turn decreased the capacity of our staff. We at Brightside are being asked to do more of defects' job than we've ever done before. Like And that's tricky. I mean, quite frankly, give me a couple $1 million and let me at it. Like, I'll give it a try, but they're not willing to do that. So I'll add case managers and start doing this stuff, but no one's taken me up on my offer yet. But we have to, and we're not, honestly, we're not great at saying no because when a child's in crisis, we want to step in. Nobody wants to watch a young person be further traumatized, but we all see it every single day. So, one of the things that we've started to do, and we are going to do more, and this is a huge part of our strategic plan, is to raise our voice. We have to start doing targeted advocacy. This is tricky because another thing that came down from the federal government and anybody receiving federal funds, that can be a reason you lose your funding. And so we have to be very mindful of that and the way that we do it. But right now, my focus is convincing the state of Georgia that Chatham County needs to be paid attention to. And I think that is something we have to do. And no one's going to do it for us. And DFACS, Chatham County DFACS office cannot do it. It's not built into the culture. They are not allowed. So I think that's our role. And so that's going to be a big, that's why I put it in here on Chatham County's child welfare because we're in crisis. We're actually talking about our Creating Brighter Futures theme this year being something along the right lines of community in crisis to highlight what we see every day because the average citizen has no idea the trauma that's being caused to children in foster care in Chatham County. And if they do and they look away, not much we can do about that, but we can make sure they have to actually look away. We can make them uncomfortable first, you know? Um, we are working on strengthening the core, the stronger data systems, and administrative capacity, as I mentioned, and financial controls. Naomi and I have spent the last 6 months to year really overhauling all of our financials with our bookkeeper to making sure that we are tracking things better, that we can pull better reporting, that we can do better forecasting. These government grants have become slower at paying us. So, they won't pay us till we do the work. But then they can take a while to pay us. And so managing cash flow and ensuring that we can operate has become trickier and trickier. And so we've had to really kind of go back to that and again, start operating like the size organization that we are. And then really the next part of our strategic, I feel that we always try to take care of our staff and our volunteers, but we can always do that better. And we want to continue to build on that. Um, and then we have other exciting news. If you've not heard, the DFACS building has been sold. They believe they're officially signing in this week or next week. I'm not sure. That's been put off. Weirdly, DFACS is holding it up because it's a, bureaucracy that they have to kind of work through, right? It is so Goodwill bought the building and is going to transform it into Opportunity Center, modeled after the Louisville Center. You can kind of Google that Louisville Opportunity Center. I went and visited with about 15 other agencies. Goodwill brought us all to Louisville, and it was amazing. And I'm so excited. Been working with the architect, so we will move out. Who knows when? It was supposed to be August. Does not look like that. I'm guessing it's going to be more towards the end of the year. And we'll DFACS. We'll be moving out of the building while they renovate all the floors. They'll bring DFACS back to 2.5 floors. And then we will come back, but also will a whole bunch of agencies. And it'll be a place where families can come, a one-stop shop to access adult education, employment opportunities, legal services, financial education, physical and dental health. There'll be a YMCA. There'll be us working with youth in foster care. There'll be DFACS will still be in the building as well. So just such exciting things. It is going to transform. And like that is what I'm trying to remind myself and our staff, like that's a really positive thing that's going to be a game changer for our families because our families are having trouble getting through, and there'll be mental health services, getting through this finishing a case plan if they have a case plan, doing the things they need because these services are so disjointed. And so this will be a place that they can get all of those services at once. DFACS could be like walk down the hall and there's where you can go find work on employment, And I'm going to work with with goodwill to ensure that it's trauma informed, as well as ensuring that they understand how families intersect with defects and what the requirements are, so that maybe some of these like parenting classes and anger management classes and things these parents have to do, we can do in this one building. And so defects no longer is that building that is a place of trauma, but now it becomes a place of hope. And I think that's going to be incredibly powerful. And there'll be on-site navigators. So when you walk in, you immediately have navigators who they hire from the community in which it's in. So there'll be people from East Savannah that are working, who's your first face, someone you probably know because they're from your own community. And that will now help them navigate the services. And so I'm incredibly excited, and I'm really grateful to the Day Family Foundation, which has become a terrific funders of ours, who basically bullied our way into the room. We would have never been a part of these conversations. All the other agencies are so much larger. But we're also part of the reason why they're buying the defects building because of that relationship. I had some knowledge, shared it, and they're like, that's interesting. They were going to build a brand new building across the street. And that would have taken about 3 more years. And so this whole project got moved up. And I think nothing could be, defects is difficult to work with to get the building, but once it's there, like it's going to be so amazing to have defects in this building with all these other services. And once we once it's all done and the kind of the state is out and it's just our Chatham County people, we can build some really amazing thing. And I think also change the culture of defects in Chatham County. So excited about that. So some things we're going to stop doing is relying on too heavily on those funding sources we cannot control. So government funding, pretty much. Adding new commitments without clear outcomes. No new programs for quite some time. So don't bring me your program ideas. You can bring me ideas to put in the programs. Capacity and sustainable funding for the programs we have. Talked about a more diversified and predictable revenue model, using shared outcomes. So a big thing in our strategic plan is and vision that I have is to have a model where we're doing better management of our data and reporting our outcomes, and having a centralized, I would love to have a centralized position around reporting and shared outcome measures and all of our data management and grant writing. So that's my vision of having a position in that, because I think that will take us to the next level to start going after some more national foundations, and major donors, to show them what we're really capable of. We've scaled up these programs and we can continue to do so and make incredible use of your dollars and in turn save a lot of tax dollars. Um, and then we're going to keep what we do well, which is this incredible advocacy and relationship building that we do across all three of our programs. And our people, we have some of the best people in Chatham County. We have volunteers that care so deeply, life coaches that give so much of their time, staff that every day come into the office and maintain the hope and the positivity and the belief that these children deserve it, and our partners and our donors, our stakeholders, and continue to working with them. And so what we're asking is for you to continue to be a part of this hope. Um, we're asking people to advocate, to be a voice for kids in crisis. We've redone our new newsletter. We had a little bit of a hiccup. The newsletter that went out initially was meant for just donors and community members. So, but you CASA volunteers got it. So you can see what the donors and community volunteers will get. You will get your actual one that's geared towards stakeholders and CASA volunteers next week. So it'll have a lot of similar information. So just so you know, you'll have kind of a repeat in a little bit of ways, but it'll also have some more of the substantial things that are just for those deep inside the work. And so, but in both of them, there's going to be an advocacy piece of like what you can talk to your legislators about, who we need to talk to what we need to say to our commissioners, and we'll be highlighting and giving you language and showing you what you can do because we have a large network and I think we can use this network and we can make some change. We are from all different political backgrounds, all different walks of life. We're the dream team with our volunteers and our stakeholders. We can, I think, really impact change. And so then we'll recruit. We need to recruit. We need more CASA volunteers. Our CASA classes are at an all-time low. We start with a lot of people, but they don't make it through. I think they see how hard the work is, which is good. I mean, we'd rather you drop out during training than when you're already assigned to a child. But it's been really tricky, and it's just been a post-COVID problem. It's never come back after COVID. And so then donate, obviously, that we can't do this work without funding. Our individual giving is significantly lower than what it should be for an organization of our size. So that has really been the focus of with Alexis, and I. And so if you have relationships with people that want to make meaningful gifts, that want to invest in an organization that's doing hard work, please make introductions for us. We need nothing more than an introduction, and share my TED Talk, invite them to an event. For Creating Brighter Futures, we're happy to give our CASA volunteers free tickets to invite someone that you think might be able to make a meaningful impact on our organization. Um, we have to be really focused on that. And then we also need to really bring in that fostering success tax credit. We don't know why we're struggling. That's a one-for-one tax credit. It's income taxes we pay to the state. I do it personally myself. I made it so that barely any of my Georgia taxes come out of my paycheck, and I just make a donation to the organization, and I still get a refund. I've done it the last 2 years. And so it's difficult for people that may not be able to make an initial sum, right? But it could even be broken down to $500 a quarter that you do, and then you just ask for that. There is $30 million in that tax credit. We are halfway through the year basically, and only less than 10 million has been used. It's not ever been maxed out. And it is $2,500 per individual, $5,000 for a couple. But come July 1, they drop those limits, so it could be your entire tax liability. And it's a credit. It's a non-refundable credit, which makes it a little trickier. I don't understand how I still get a refund that is beyond my pay grade. I think it's because I pay too much. I don't know. And so you can still get a refund. It's just they say it's non-refundable. So maybe we're talking to some accountants to help us explain this better, and find out who are the right people for us to talk to. But please tell everybody you know about that, because if you're paying any state income tax, we just saw what the governor did. Stop giving them our money. Give it to us and let us make use of it for our kids that deserve it. And then connect us with, I said donors, but companies, community groups. I love to public speak. Terrified of TEDx. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Memorizing is not my strength. I was terrified, but I do love to speak to groups and share the passion that I have for this work. So, and have several people on the staff that like to do the same. So just help us open those doors with companies and community groups so that we can, expand this work. Honestly, I need to increase our funding by about $100,000 in this next year. We'll have to start paying rent when we move back into the building, so that's going to be a substantial lift for us. And so I really want to find and my staff need raises. Cost of living has gone up, and we need to be able to meet that, which is very hard to do when your funding is getting cut. So that's where we're at. And I um, hope that I had some hope. I know a lot of it's heavy, but I'm feeling positive and hopeful in the work. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do as an organization. Our growth has been amazing. Um, we believe deeply in this mission, and every day these young people that pop into our office are just a reminder every single day. I guess I'll leave you with Charlie came into the office today. Mandy and Alexis, I was meeting with Alexis, and Mandy came in, and we were just talking about creating brighter futures. And we have an idea of asking people, like asking foster kids that were in foster care, foster parents, all of that everybody that the system touches, what would make a really big difference, do you think? Um, Mandy, you might have to help me remember what his words were, but I asked him that, And he started talking about, he's like, I wish people would have just been honest with me. A case manager would just tell me, like, you get to keep your phone when you go to this group home. And then he's like, and then I'm like in this most lockdown, like maximum security group home and I don't have anything. And I called her and I was like, what is this about? And she's like, oh, and made a joke about it. And he's like, what they never understood is every decision they made affected my life. Like it was a one decision at work for them that changed the course of his life. And I thought that was so powerful. Some things we take for granted, right? That one decision every day they show up to work and they're just trying to do their job, but their job impacts the life of a child. And how can three case managers with 300 cases possibly be making good decisions or doing what's necessary that is not negatively impacting these kids? And I say it every day to people who don't know anything about the system. We cause more harm to these kids in the foster care system than they ever experienced outside of it. And I'll stand by that. But we can change that. And Charlie is a different man because of us and has been given opportunity that he's never been given before, and we don't lie to him. And that's the hope that we bring.